All right, for starters, I'm doing this from my garage because I can't keep my kids quiet for 5 minutes. So um, we're going to go over the Florida Derby Day card, some price plays. We did a video before on the Rainbow Six, but to be honest, I'm not even sure I'm going to play that now because with newspaper of record scratched, I kind of feel like that first race, the ninth race, the Sand Springs, I think it's called, is way more wide open than it was before, and I just don't know that I feel like spending the money to feel confident about covering that race. So I don't know. Maybe I'll play. Maybe I won't. Let's see what the scratches end up being. It's 8:45 a.m. on Saturdays. I start recording this, so it's possible some of the horses we're going to talk about here are going to scratch. I know what my Florida Derby long shot has scratched, so it's just kind of a work in progress, I guess you'd say. So yeah, let's go over some price plays on the card. We'll start with race one. So there are three horses here in race one that I think are interesting. I think what I'm going to do to start the day is just make a small daily double play with my three price plays to another price horse that I like in race two. Race one here, non-winners of one other than at a mile and a 16th on the turf. And I think this 8, Devious Charm, Mark Casse, Julien Leparoux, is a little interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if this one goes to the front. And I'll bet you if she does, she's going to hang on maybe a little bit longer than her morning light odds would suggest. So I think she's interesting. If she can make the lead, I'm going to use her. I also think the 11, Traipsing, Christophe Clement, Joel Rosario, 20 on the morning line. The maiden race was the race that Newspaper of Record made her career debut in. And then this one, Traipsing, came back at Presque Isle, won by 8, and has been off ever since. That was, what are we talking about, a year and a half ago now, I guess it's been, since we saw Traipsing on the racetrack. So 20 to 1 on the morning line is understandable, but it looks like there's some ability there. And who knows? Maybe the last year and a half has resulted in this one really developing. So I could see that one being a part of this. And then number 12, Enjoy It While We Can. Bad Post also has speed, but I mean, who's been hotter than Saez at Gulfstream? And this will be first turf for this one. They tried to get her on the grass last time; it came off the turf. So I think those are three long shots that make sense. So what I'm going to do is make a small bet because look, I mean, this is a tough race, and the ones I've identified here are clearly not the most likely winners. We're going to have to get lucky and guess correctly, I guess you could say. But we'll start off this early double with the 8, the 11, and the 12 and just kind of hope for the best. And then as we move on to race 2, 7 furlongs, allowance optional claimer. There is a horse in here that I think is a little bit sneaky, and that's the 7, Be Gone Daddy. 2 wins from 6 starts at 7 furlongs, 3 wins from 8 starts at Gulfstream Park. And if we look back through the past performances down in here, these 3 races at 7 furlongs over this surface, we got some pretty good buyers here. If you're a buyer speed figure person, she's run right around that 90 mark. And if we look through the rest of the field, buyer speed figure of 90, if you think she can get back to that number, would make her very competitive. We had the horse 72 on the morning line, ran at 91. And look, anybody who's followed me for long enough knows that I don't put all of my faith in buyer speed figures for sure, but I just think given that Be Gone Daddy seems to really like this distance and didn't really have the greatest trips in the 3 previous starts dating back to the December race at Tampa since the layoff and the trainer change, I think we also have improving buyers from 64 to a 72 to an 82. Does that mean there's going to be a step up? No, of course not. But when we got 15 to 1 on the morning line, why not take a chance? So that's going to be my early play, is that double play with just the long shots. And we move on to race 3, non-winners of 2 at a mile and a 16th on the turf. And there are 2 that I like in here. I mean, the 3 is obvious. The 3 is going to be favored. And under Luis Saez for Todd Pletcher, I think everyone expects that this one's going to go to the front, and it's not going to surprise anyone if he wires this field. But I've got a trip note here on the 4, Faraway Kitten. In his last race, which was an open $40,000 claiming event where he ran for Mike Maker, I wrote bottled up late may have been best. And he really was bottled up there kind of before the turn for home and then into the stretch. and probably should have won. I mean, the issue is even if he had won, would that make him any more likely to win here? And probably not. I just think at 12 to 1, I think it's kind of an absurd price, and I think there's a really good chance that this one could run a big race in here. I noticed that this one is also entered in a race tomorrow, so this 4 Faraway Kitten may not even go in here. In fact, who knows? As I'm recording this, the horse may have already been scratched. I didn't see anything this morning when I checked racing Twitter. But if the Ford stays in this race, the Ford goes in here. It's also, look, I mean, they're running him for 62.5 when just clean him for 40. So I don't hate that move at all. So I think the 4 is interesting. Let's see if the 4 even goes in this race or waits until tomorrow. Moving on to race 4. I felt this race. This wasn't one I really had anything clever to say in. My buddy the Chalkbuster, I think, likes get smoke in here. Vitalogy is tough. South Bend obviously is very tough. Decorated Invader. I think I'm just going to watch this race and just kind of enjoy it as a horse racing fan. Maybe not bet. That 11 Mr. Hustle is interesting, undefeated. A lot of ways anybody could go in here, and I just with so many good horses that I couldn't make a strong case against. I don't think this is one where I want to go try to chase a price just for fun, So let's move on to race number 5. Another non-winners of 2 other than 1 Turn Mile, and Chewing Gum I think is interesting under Florent Geroux for Bill Mott. I think this one there's a lot of speed signed on in here, and I think we're going to get a quick pace. And I don't think Chewing Gum is going to be up and on the lead, but I think he'll be close enough to maybe get first run on the closers. And I think the closing kick is strong enough in here to where, Chewing Gum could hold off all those late runners. And there's some good ones in here. Like Wind of Change, 134, or rather 135 time for U.S. pace projection. There are some other, Intrepid Heart is really interesting. Bourbon War. I've been down the Bourbon War road too many times. I will probably never bet that horse ever again. This 11, not sure. Al Mashriq also figures to be part of the pace under Luis Saez. So I think we're going to get a pretty honest pace in here. And I think if that happens, Florent Geroux can have Chewing Gum just a little bit off the pace, and I think can make that closing move. 4 to 1, and not exactly a price play, but I don't expect Chewing Gum to be favored, so it's one that I wanted to highlight. Moving on to race 6, the How's Hope. Last year, in fact, I know last year this race was run at a mile because a horse that Sir Anthony is in here ran in that race, and if you see here, it was run at 1 mile. The horse that I like in here is Prompt, another Bill Mott, 20 to 1 on the morning line. I don't think that race at Tampa was terrible. It was the first race since May of 2019 that had been 2 consecutive wins. I mean, this is a step up. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the 11 is going to have to run a really big race. But again, like with some other horses we've talked about this morning, I think there's going to be some pace in here. And we know Rare Form is going to go out early, and some others have shown the ability to kind of wing it on the front and run well. I think American Tattoo is going to be up there and on the pace. So I don't think we're going to get a slow pace. But Bodie Express, I briefly forgot that he was even in this race. I mean, he's going to be up there. So all that says to me that Prompt is interesting. And if that quick early pace does materialize, 20 to 1. I mean, I kind of doubt we get 20 to 1 on Prompt, even though this is a step up and he's going to have to run a big race. But I think the race might just set up well for him to give his best shot. Whether it's good enough remains to be seen. Let's move on to the 7th race. Let's see, this is the stakes race for 3-year-old fillies at 1 mile on the turf. So Stunning Sky, I've got a trip note here. I wrote effing disaster of a trip, and I would encourage you to go back and watch the replay of that race, the race that Cheermeister, who's in here today, Cheermeister won that on the front. Stunning Sky was 9 to 2 in there, coming off consecutive wins for Mike Maker. Again, Florent Geroux in here picks up the mount from Paco Lopez. That trip was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, she was completely shut off at the start, checked at least one additional time in the stretch, and then was way wide and just completely packed it in. I mean, a total no-hoper of an effort, just an abysmal trip. I'm not, I don't think you can blame Paco Lopez for it, but I'm a big fan of Florent Geroux, and I think he'll get Stunning Sky in a much better position. And then, Cheermeister is obvious in here, may end up going favorite in this spot, is the one who won that last race on the 29th of February by going wire to wire. So, I think when you watch the replay of the 3 Stunning Sky, I think you'll come away pretty impressed with, well, maybe not impressed with the effort because, she didn't do much running, but I think you'll forgive the effort. It's probably a better way of putting it. And, if you go back back to the win, ran a 66 Beyer speed figure. I mean, that's not exactly competitive with a horse like Cheermeister in here. And there are others that can run that fast too. But, who knows? We may see a step up. You're going to have to see a step up, and you'll get rewarded if she does step up, because at 12-1 on the morning line, you just got to hope that she's ready to take that next step forward. She's lightly raced, and maybe today will be the day. So let's move on to the 8th race. I didn't have much of an opinion here. I didn't spend a ton of time on this race. There are just so many in here that I feel like I've played before and have struggled with, have lost money on a number of these horses. I think it's going to be exciting to see what Vekoma can do in his first race since the Kentucky Derby. I think I'll just watch this and see how he does. I don't have a rooting interest in this race. If I decide to play a multi-race wager or something here once the scratches come out, I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll just maybe I'll play Vekoma. I don't know. Moving on to the 9th, we talked about this in the video that we did on the Rainbow Six, and with Newspaper of Record out, that changes things for me from a Rainbow Six perspective, obviously, because I was only going to go 2 deep in here. But the other one I was going to use is number 4, Smart Shot, Rusty Arnold, Luca Panici. I still think, even with the defection of Newspaper of Record, that we're going to get an honest pace up front. And I just wonder if Smart Shot might be the beneficiary of that. She's only got 3 wins in 18 lifetime starts. I think she's, so far she's shown an affinity for the Churchill Downs turf course. She's 0 for 4 over the Gulfstream turf course. But I just think if they really go fast up front, we also got Landeros off. Landeros is 0 for 111 at the meet. And the rider switched to Luca Panici. I mean, regardless of what you think about Luca Panici, this is a positive rider change. And if we get a quick pace in here, which I think that's going to give Smart Shot her best chance. Whether she's good enough, I mean, on paper, if you go back through through the last, say, dozen or so races, there's the occasional spot where she's run big enough. I mean, again, buyers on turf are often tough to hang your hat on, but this too, Zophel is going to get played. I heard a number of people on social media tout her yesterday, even before Newspaper of Record was scratched. I mean, she's running 90, and if we look through some of the other horses in here that we expect to get money, I mean, Newspaper of Record has run 1 buyer, even though she's out over a 90. La Signore has a career best of 94 with that coming quite some time ago. Low 90 buyer for Get Mother a Rose and her win at Gulfstream last time out. So if we look back at Smart Shot, I mean, she's running 93. So on at the top of her game, I think she does make sense if we get that fast pace in here. And on paper, it looks like we just might get that fast pace. Let's move on to the 10th, the Orchid. So in my Rainbow Six, I was going to go 4 deep in here. The horse that I think I'm going to play, at least as my prize play, is probably going to be the 2 Kelsey's Cross. Let's just flip through here and see. A lot of people like Gentle Ruler, and I wouldn't talk anybody out of Gentle Ruler. But I mean, again, Landeros is on here. I mean, what do you do with Landeros? I mean, the meet he had last year was decent, and 0 for 111. I mean, yeah, he's run second or third 27 times. So I mean, but I don't know what's going on. That's just almost impossible to believe that a jockey like Landeros could be 0 for 111. I mean, Me Mary is the one that people think, oh, I briefly forgot that Cap de Cruz was in here. There's no way we're getting 10 to 1 on the 7 Cap de Cruz. If we do get 10 to 1, then I'm going to probably reevaluate some things. I'll bet you this one's more like 6 to 1. I mean, she had an absolutely abysmal trip in that last start, so I really like her a lot. And then I also used the 12 Elizabeth Way in the Rainbow Six, and I think she's probably the least likely of the 4 that I picked. So I think the price plays I'm going to try to get in here are the 7 Cap de Cruz, and the 2 Kelsey's Cross. And I just because I don't think we're going to get that morning line on the 7 Cap de Cruz, I'm thinking more about the 2 here. But let's see what the tote board says, and who knows, maybe we try to get creative with a different kind of wager. The 11 race 11, the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Lake Avenue is one that I included in the multi-race wagers. I don't love Lake Avenue. I mean, I think she's one you have to use. Spice is nice, the same thing. The one I'm going to lean on, I think, from a value standpoint, is number 6, Swiss Skydiver. We talked about this in the other video where she really never threatened Finite in the Rachel Alexandra, and yes, Finite came back and ran poorly in the on the Louisiana Derby undercard, the Fairgrounds Oaks. So I think she'll have to run a better race. I mean, there's no doubting that. I mean, she's run four times in her career, always in the upper 70s in terms of buyers, and others in here would just eat that for lunch. So she's going to have to run a better race. But that race at the Fairgrounds was her first time around 2 turns, and if you just aren't that impressed with some of the horses that come out of the Devona Dale, or if you don't think Lucrezia can bring that Tampa form to Gulfstream, which maybe she can, maybe she can't. I just think Swiss Skydiver is a little bit interesting. And then honestly, that's really it in terms of price plays, because in the Pan American, the 2 that I like are Channel Cat, and then the one that everybody expects to be the heavy favorite. I'm not sure if he'll be odds on or not, but the way that Zulu Alpha has run in the last 2, really in the last 3, because the Breeders' Cup Turf effort was really solid. Zulu Alpha is probably going to run a very big race. I don't know if we're going to get 3 to 5 or not, if that's the price that we're going to get. I mean, I think more people are going to play Channel Cat than maybe the morning line maker thought. Channel Cat's not going to be favored in here, but I think Channel Cat has got a really big chance under Rosario, breaking from the rail to go to the front. Maybe not set the pace, but I think just have a bit of maybe in this race, a tactical advantage over Zulu Alpha, get first run and maybe hold on and win. So I think, again, this is 9 to 2 morning line, not exactly a price play. So I think, I think that's the way I'm going to lean there. And then the race 13, I had no opinion. So we're skipping to the Florida Derby. The horse that I was going to use in here, I'm hearing is going to be scratched, Sassy But Smart, which is interesting to me that he was even entered here, because he could have been entered in the stakes race on the undercard, or somewhere else, but didn't. I could understand scratching out of here, but it's like, why enter? I don't know. I mean, maybe they won't scratch. I think I don't know if I heard conclusively that Sassy But Smart is coming out of the Florida Derby. I saw something about it on social media, so I'm assuming he's not going to be in there. Then it may just come down to Independence Hall versus Tiz the Law. I don't have anything clever to say about either of these 2 horses, other than maybe I think Independence Hall deserves a little more credit than he's getting. Let's see if he can run well enough to beat Tiz the Law in here. It should be an exciting race to watch. And if you don't like either of those 2, I could see making a case for some others. I think Chivalry, it just sort of feels like these jacks are better horses always turn up in these kinds of races. It's like a given they're going to run in those races restricted to Florida breds as 2-year-olds. That race, In Reality, I mean, everybody who ran in that race seemingly came back to win. If we click on that chart and look at their next races, we can see that 4 of the top 5 finishers came back to win their next start, and the top 6 came back to run first or second. So I'm not sure that can translate to a mile and an eighth for this horse. I'm not sure the breeding is there for a mile and an eighth, but I think this horse Chivalry has a lot of ability, and is interesting when it turns up somewhere else. I mean, a lot of people like Governor Morris. Katie Tycoon for Pletcher is somewhat interesting. Etienne again drawing from the rail, or not from the outside post. I mean, that's going to be tricky. And I guess Rogue Element will get in with the scratches. I haven't heard if they're planning, if Romans is planning to run this one. I don't know that I think this one is a major threat to win at all. But it's going to be an interesting race, a fun day of racing. Hopefully, we put you on some long shots. I don't know how you use that information. Maybe you add a couple of the horses we talked about here to your multi-race wagers. Maybe you plan to win. I don't know. Good luck and enjoy the day.